Is AOC potentially poised for another historic upset election in New York? Well, according to a new poll, that might be possible. You see, a lot of people have been pushing for her to potentially challenge Chuck Schumer the next go round for his Senate race because they see him as doing absolutely nothing to stand up to Donald Trump or the Republicans. And according to a recent Data for Progress poll, in a hypothetical primary, which is admittedly, almost 20 months in the future, she currently leads by 19 points against Chuck Schumer, which is fairly significant. And honestly, there's not even that many people who aren't sure about who they'd vote for. These are two very well-known people. And Data for Progress tried to see if maybe some of the most likely lines of attack against AOC would bring down those numbers. So they produced, you can see right there that neither providing a positive bio had much of a change. I gave her 1 extra point. The negative bio didn't take off anything. And we can just briefly go to graphic 3. We're not gonna read the entire thing, but it's like a thick paragraph of all of the most cliched attacks against AOC, that she's just in it for her brand, she doesn't actually deliver, she's just an extremist, she can't bring people together, blah, 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 all that stuff. When people read that, it did not diminish their support for her at all in this particular poll, which I think is pretty significant. And there might be a reason for that, especially when she's being contrasted with Chuck Schumer. When you ask New York Democrats, do they want their leaders to do more, less, or the same amount that they're doing right now to oppose Donald Trump, it could not be more clear. Basically, every single person thinks they're not doing enough. And who in New York has a better opportunity to do more than Chuck Schumer? And he's not doing any of it. And I just want to remind people, this is the sort of poll we've shown you before, although it's an updated version of it. AOC is actually tied for third most net positively favored or seen politician in New York, actually. Bernie Sanders is a little bit more liked, Harris slightly more as well, but AOC is tied with Elizabeth Warren at a plus 60, where she's at a plus 59 on that metric, 75% favorability. And again, she has been in the public eye almost constantly for 7 years. People know about her, they've heard the attacks, they've seen it on Fox News. And so, yeah, I'm not saying that if it came to a primary, that Chuck Schumer or crypto PACs or whatever wouldn't try some of these tactics, but I think they might find that against her, it's a little bit less successful than against a complete unknown. What do you think about this?
Okay, I think this is excellent news. So let me break it down. First, on who should you support between AOC and Chuck Schumer? No brainer of all time, AOC. So does that mean I agree with AOC on everything? No, she has some positions that I don't agree with, okay? But I don't do purity tests. So I'm not like, oh, she disagrees with me 5%, burn her down. No, so what? She's to the left of me on some issues, fantastic, who cares, right? So I would recommend that she runs on economic populism, because that's much more likely to get to a win, right? But God bless, okay? So why is it a no-brainer though? If I have some disagreements with AOC, I certainly have some disagreements with Schumer as well, because Chuck Schumer is the much bigger problem in the Democratic Party. So like, okay, so we have some far left positions that aren't popular, but you don't have to emphasize them. And that's not the end all be all. The end all be all is, are you a corporate goon or are you not? Are you part of the establishment and the status quo and you serve your donors or not? That is the overwhelming issue. That is the mountain of an issue, right? And that's what we've been talking about on this show for 20 straight years. So AOC doesn't take corporate PAC money, she's a just Democrat. So someone who doesn't take corporate PAC money and is more right on the issues overall and is 1,000 times less corrupted versus a guy who's been, sheep herding Democrats towards corporate positions his whole life. Where's the question? That's not even close. And luckily the polls apparently agree with me, not close, okay? So now, but the bigger reason why this is great news is because this is so telling. Like I would have told you the same thing for 5 years ago, 10 years ago, et cetera, but that poll wouldn't have come out the same way. And what has happened is Democratic leadership has lost all credibility. Thank God, okay? Not because I'm against Democrats, but because they're the ones ruining the Democratic Party. You need a new guard to replace the old guard, and it doesn't. And if all it is, oh, we found a new corporate Democrat who is younger than Chuck Schumer. Now Pete Buttigieg will replace Chuck Schumer. We have a new and improved edition of our corporate robot, right? Well, that's not going to help at all. But AOC ain't that. Even if you disagree with her on issues, she's not a robot. She's a real person with her real opinions, who from time to time, not as much as I want, but from time to time fights back. Okay, I want her to fight back more, but I mean, compared to other Democrats, it's not close, right? So the fact that the voters, the Democratic voters in here, now remember what I told you. You have to pay attention to the voters when they give you a clear sign. So maybe you thought there wasn't crime in Oakland, but when the voters of Oakland say 65 to 35, goddamn right there was crime, and we were ousting this mayor, pay attention to that. But also pay attention to this, where the Democratic voters are saying, yes, we prefer AOC by a large margin to Chuck Schumer, so stop sending us those corporate robots. I love it, I love it. That is a sea change of a difference. You would not have seen that before this election. So when I said like I feel a little bit liberated after this election, people like, I get it. It's a phrase that triggers people and go, oh, so you like the Trump? No. You guys, we're getting liberated from the Chuck Schumers, Nancy Pelosi's, and Joe Biden's of this party that have been dragging us down like an anchor our whole lives. See, and this poll is an excellent indication of that liberation. The voters are finally saying, we don't believe you anymore when you tell us Democratic leaders are geniuses and we have to obey and comply with them. That's the best trend there is. Yes.
Yeah. Look, to your point, I know a lot of our viewers have mixed feelings on AOC, but this is a big deal. She is still one of the most progressive representatives that we have in the House. She's in her mid-30s and she is not Chuck Schumer. And as much as I don't think anyone should support a candidate just because they're not the other candidate, it is a huge deal that someone so young and so far left of the median is gaining this widespread support in this way. This should be a victory for all of us here at TYT and all of our viewers, right? This is what we've been fighting for all along. That doesn't mean that the work stops. That doesn't mean that we should stop holding our new batch of leaders if and when they ever get into position. It doesn't mean that we don't hold them accountable. The work is ongoing, right? We keep pushing for more and more, and that is how progress happens. That's why we're progressives, right? Chuck Schumer has proven time and time again, meanwhile, that he is willfully out of touch with the American people. It is a choice at this point for him. He knows what he's doing. He's not stupid. I think he's arrogant, even though I think that he would think that he is wise and experienced. But experience can only get you so far in politics. At some point, you do need to step aside and let the next generation lead, or at least not hinder them and not get in their way whenever they try to make things better for their generation and for their families and for the future people who are coming. And Chuck Schumer, his age is really just the least of the reasons as to why he should be out of Congress, or at least out of such a high position in Congress. He simply does not support the American people anymore. His stances do not support the American people, and he doesn't understand the American people. He doesn't back our stances. He doesn't listen to what the American people actually want out of their government and from their representatives. And he even said that his job in Congress is not to support his constituents, it's to support Israel. That's wrong. By definition, that is not his job. That's not what he is in Congress to be doing. So get him out of there. I'm so over this guy.
Yeah, I gotta add one thing here. So we did a town hall for Operation Hope earlier in the week. If you're a member, please check that out, because a lot of our core viewers who are part of Operation Hope asked me about, hey, far left, radical left, what are you doing? Help us understand. Some of us are, to the left of you or significantly to the left of you. And we had a wonderful conversation. So please check that out if you can, if you're a member. So, but I want to summarize this super quick here. So, and this is a good example of it, that's why I'm doing it here. So far left is on, and they, by the way, the viewers got me to change the language a little bit, and I want to explain that to you, okay? Far left is on policies. So, hence I think I've been saying it a little bit wrong, and certainly haven't been clear enough, right? So you could argue that AOC is far left on policies. Great, no problem. There's, I'm far left on some policies, right? And there's normal disagreements on a whole host of issues, right? What I'm objecting to is the radical left. And so in radical, not in policy, but in attitude. So this is also a good example in this case, because some of the radical left are angry at AOC and they think she's not left enough, including on Palestine. Yeah, look, I get it. I wish she spoke out a little bit more, and I wish she voted a little bit more around the edges on that issue. And what she said during the convention about how Kamala Harris was great on this issue is not true. She's not great on this issue. I understand all that, and I care deeply about that issue. I'm not canceling her over that. Are you insane? So what do you want Schumer to win? Schumer's much worse on Palestine. So the attitude is what I object to. So you don't like AOC's position on Palestine? Then work to get her to the right position instead of saying that's it. She's no good. She didn't pass the purity test. No, I'm more pure than her. Oh God, are you insane? Please, please. This attitude is going to take out everyone. And forget the hosts, the candidates. Don't attack the candidates. Please, please don't do crazy stuff like that. So, but I mean, I'm addressing the radicals, and they're not gonna listen to me because that by definition, they're radicals in their attitude. So AOC would be amazing as a New York senator, especially vis-a-vis Chuck Schumer. So please use your sense to get to the best possible candidate without demanding some sort of weird 100% agreement with you. Which politician agrees 100% with any citizen? That's just a totally unreasonable standard. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.